Hi, everybody. Welcome to RunCenter at the 2012 Boston Marathon, presented by Adidas. I'm Tony Revis, and we're reporting from the town Stove and Spirit in Boston's famed Back Bay. We're not 600 meters from the finish line of Monday's 160th running of the Boston Marathon. In fact, from a historical standpoint, our broadcast location is on what used to be known as Ring Road. That's the old finish line. So we're here on hallowed ground in Boston. We'll be with you on Competitor.com throughout the rest of the week, bringing you interviews and news and features toward the countdown to the world's oldest marathon. Now, later on, you'll meet my broadcast partners, Olympian Carrie Tollefson and Competitor.com's own Mario Fraioli. But right now, let's begin with the morning news. And we have a couple of scratches in the elite field to tell you about. The Ethiopian Federation has taken out Tadesse Tola from the field. He was recently fifth in January's Dubai Marathon, where he ran 2:05:10. Because of that, he's been pre-selected to make their provisional Olympic team, and they don't want him running here in Boston. That's a big loss on the men's side. Now, also, Robert Kiprono Chariot from Kenya. He's the 2010 Boston Marathon champion. Came down with a little bit of an injury. He's had to pull out of the race as well. On the women's side, Mamito Daska from Ethiopia. She won the Houston and Frankfurt Marathon last year. She was a big gun. She's also come down with a small injury. She's had to pull out. And finally, Galina Bogolimova from Russia, 9th in Dubai in January. Again, coming down with an injury, and she's been forced to pull out. Now, the kickoff event to the 2012 Boston Marathon is called Cheers to the Boston Marathon. It took place last night at the Hampshire House on Beacon Street and Charles Street on Beacon Hill. At that dinner, the BAA gave out its annual Patriot Award to recently retired Boston Red Sox knuckleball pitcher Tim Wakefield. Unfortunately, Tim was unable to attend, but accepting his award was CEO and president of the Red Sox, Larry Lucchino. That was the big news last night in Boston as we kicked off marathon weekend. Weather looks like it's going to be a significant story at this year's Boston Marathon. 2 days ago, they said the projected high would be just 62 degrees. The latest forecast calls for a high that may reach as high as 84, which is dangerous marathoning weather. Here in New England, the weather can change on a dime, so we will keep close track on the weather situation as we move forward daily here on RunCenter. That's a quick look at the news. Right now, let's bring in one of my old broadcast partners, great friend, Carrie Tollefson, a 2004 Olympian at 1,500 meters. Now, 26,700 runners are entered in Monday's marathon. You have to earn your number at Boston. You just can't buy it. So we decided to ask Carrie to go out in the field and find out where did people qualify and how did they qualify. Here's what you found out.
Hey Tony, the doors of the 2012 Boston Marathon Expo have just opened and everyone is getting here. So excited to run the race on Monday, and I'm going to catch up with them and see how their journey was getting here.
Yeah, well, I'm from Canada, so running in the wintertime is tough. So spring marathons are tough training, a lot of running in the snow and stuff.
I qualified through the charity program. I used to work at Children's Hospital Boston, and I decided if I was ever going to run a marathon, I'd run for Children's, and I decided for my 40th birthday, which is this year, I'd run the Boston Marathon.
Yes, actually I am running for the Colonial Roadrunners, which is a running club based out of southeastern Massachusetts. We have about 350 members, and we volunteer. We actually man the water stops at miles 15 and 16.
All right, Scott, now rumor has it you've run here 25 years. How did you qualify for this one?
I qualified using last year's race. Yep, so I ran 3 hours and 50 seconds last year, and so I'm here again.
So tell us how you do that. I mean, 25 years in a row, that's pretty spectacular.
Just get up every day and run. I've got a great group of friends that we get up every day and we run, and then we all qualify and we do it again.
I qualified in Fargo, North Dakota, in their marathon there last May. And my training's been going really well. I live in Dickinson, North Dakota, and it's very hilly.
The qualifying, I ran a marathon a year ago in March and only qualified by 2 minutes. So I was really worried about was I going to be able to get in the race. So I ran another race the first weekend of May, and I qualified by 17 minutes. So I was pretty happy at that point that I knew I was in. So
I qualified with the Cape Cod Marathon. Growing up as a runner, Boston was always a dream, and this will now be my third time running Boston, but I absolutely love it. I feel like everybody feels like a celebrity running it, like so many people cheering and so supportive. It's a great neighborhoods to run through. I love it.
We'll have a great race on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Carrie. They've come from 67 nations to run this 116th Boston Marathon, and to many people, this is the athletic achievement of a lifetime. And we also want to remind you to check out Carrie's weekly webcast. It's called ctallyrun.com. It's entertaining and informative as well. So we'll talk to Carrie again tomorrow on RunCenter as well. Now, last year he shocked the world with the fastest marathon ever run. Geoffrey Mutai of Kenya ran 2:03:02, 57 seconds faster than then's world record by Haile Gebrselassie, 2:03:59. But because Boston is a point-to-point course, it does not qualify for record purposes, also because it's a net downhill run as well. We'll get into that a little bit later in the day. But still, it was only the second time in Boston history where the world's fastest marathon by a man was ever run. Back in 1947, Young Bok-soo from Korea did it as well. But because Kenya has so many great distance runners, a man who won the Boston Marathon in a course record and then went on in November to win the New York City Marathon in a course record, the only man in history to do that in a single calendar year, is still not good enough to make the Olympic team in Kenya just on those credentials alone. He's going to have to race again here in Boston on Monday. However, there's going to be 5 other men running in Rotterdam and London also this spring who are in contention for that Olympic team as well. Now, we sent our Mario Fraiole to the John Hancock press conference to ask Mutai what the difference in mentality and preparation was this year compared to last year when he came in with no pressure.
Hey, thanks, Tony. I'm here at the Fairmont Copley Plaza. I had a few minutes to catch up with Geoffrey Mutai earlier today, and man, is he ready to race.
I cannot compare last year and this year. But the only thing how I'll compare is the day of the race. I will know more about myself. When you run somewhere faster and to return there to run again faster, it's not easy. Competition is not easy, and race is depending on many ways. It's depending on climate, weather, and because I think maybe be hearing that Monday will be humid, so I don't know how our performance will be. But for me, I have to prepare myself in anything which can happen. For me, it's a lot of pressure, but I don't feel, because if I feel a lot of pressure, maybe it can affect my performance. But for me, I just relax, and because I know every race I've won competitive. I am targeting Olympic. I think maybe I will fulfill my dream, because my target only it was Olympic. So if I will be there, I normally cannot say until that day.
Thank you, Mario. Big pressure indeed on Mr. Mutai come Monday morning. Joining us on set at RunCenter right now, a good old friend, Tom Derderian, the man who wrote the definitive history of the Boston Marathon in his book, Boston Marathon, History of the World's Premier Running Event. And Tom, we're saying it's the 10th anniversary now from that book, and we're asking when are you going to do your update?
I'll start working on it tonight.
Everywhere you look, you've got a history in the making. This is the 40th anniversary of the first women's official division of the Boston Marathon. Of course, in 1966, Roberta Gibb ran the race unofficially.
It was not that the BAA was against women running when they weren't allowed to run, but it was that there was a long history in the race of people coming to the Boston Marathon because it was famous in order to use it for publicity purposes. But once in the 70s, when women started running decently in lots of road races, then the BAA officials said, well, they're here to stay, they're here to race. They're respecting the reason for the race, which is a foot race, to see you can get from one point to another point as fast as possible.
Of course, the big story last year was the fact that Geoffrey Mutai from Kenya did run that 2:03:02, the world's fastest marathon ever run. It's considered an aided course, and therefore it doesn't qualify for record purposes.
People invented tracks in order to quantify human performance. The marathon is a different thing. It originated for different reasons to celebrate the heroic warrior efforts of Phidippides, who died in the process.
Well, talk about the origins of the Boston Marathon, because it comes directly out of that Phidippides-inspired Athens Olympic Marathon of 1896.
Right, that was a point-to-point race, so it wouldn't qualify. Or a marathon in those days was regarded as something unhealthy that you did at risk to your life. And people went out to watch the marathon because they thought these guys are going to drop dead in the process. Like they were watching a boxing match. It was the same sort of thing that drove the men out of the trenches in World War I, up over the top, charging into no man's land and dying in a hail of gunfire. It was that sort of bravery that was the metaphor for the marathon. That you were a young man and you were to be like Pheidippides, and you were set up to die for your country.
Tom, delighted that you can join us here on RunCenter.
Well, thank you, Tony. Good to see you always.
And have fun throughout the weekend and gather more stuff and do an update on that book. We need it desperately here in the sport.
I'll get to work.
Great. Well, that's going to wrap up today's day one here at RunCenter at the Boston Marathon, presented by Adidas. We want to inform you that you can go to Competitor.com to get full, explicit stories on all this going on Boston Marathon weekend. And join us tomorrow at RunCenter. Hopefully the weather will be just as nice as it is today. So long from Boston's Back Bay.